to approve the minutes of July 23rd.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
No discussion.
Oh, discussion, sorry.
We had a lengthy discussion about eminent domain and some topics around that in places, and those weren't reflected in the notes. So
So my understanding is that the notes are more of a general, not necessarily specific to. So while we did talk about,
it seemed like a subject, like, you know, that.
I don't recall it being lengthy, I recall it being discussed.
Quite a bit. Or just,
okay, do you have anything on that? Like in your notes?
In my handwritten notes, I don't transcribe,
Correct.
but I can make an adjustment if that's what the committee wants.
So, do we have amendments to the motion?
well, I didn't take notes. How should I word it? Would we like to table this vote for the next committee meeting after the secretary has the notes?
So I guess the question is, are there actual notes on that portion of the discussion?
From what I remember of the discussion, it was informational purposes. It wasn't about anything specific or about any course of action.
Right, what I have,
Probably
it is an
not
option, it won't be popular, and what acreage do we need is what I have next to it.
I think that would be important stuff.
Okay, so, I guess we'll table the minutes and ask that that portion be added to the minutes, and then we'll add the minutes to. That's okay.
So do we have to rescind the
I think
motion?
we have to rescind the motion.
Okay, and then,
Right.
I'm sorry.
Can you rescind your motion so we can table the minutes? So that we can add a little about eminent domain?
After I make a statement, it seems like it's all politics, but yes, I rescind my motion.
I rescind my second.
Okay, so now you need a motion to table the minutes.
so moved.
And I need a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? There. Next is the presentation from Ron. Everybody have this.
There you go.
Thanks.
Yep. Good. Anybody?
Actually, I have an extra one, I will take it for, I just typed it everything.
So we have a few topics today to discuss. I'm going to be here, my name is Kelia Kenter. I'm with the Ride School Building Authority. I'm here today to discuss the necessity of school construction process, which is a regulatory obligation as part of the process that you have somebody from Ride come here and talk to the building committee about the process. And then I'm also joined by Dr. Carreño, who will be addressing the statewide facility assessment that we're currently conducting.
So just for clarification, this is the necessity for school construction. Our building committee is different because of the Chariho.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and people get very confused.
Apologies,
So
yes.
I just want to make sure, because we have a building committee that's going to meet right after this.
Right. This is school construction committee. I apologize for using the wrong terminology.
It's all right.
So,
It wasn't for you.
no, that's fine, that's fine. Chariho submitted a stage 1 application for the necessity of school construction process. The stage 1 application is really identifying what the needs in the district are. It does not propose a solution. Your stage 2 application, which you received approval from RIDE to move forward with that will present at least 2 options for the district to move forward, including one that's identified as a preferred. So typically, for example, if we see that there's a request for new construction, we would also present the alternative, which might have been renovation. application, right? And identify which of those options you would prefer to pursue. So we anticipate that you will be submitting in February of 2026. February 15th is the deadline. Once we receive that application, we will begin a preliminary review. That review is just to make sure you've got all the Ts crossed and the Is dotted. Specifically, we look for, well, I guess in the case of Chariho, it's different. We typically look for town council approval, but that does not apply because of the Chariho Act. So we would ask that you include a copy of the Chariho Act in so that we have that on file with the application, and then school committee approval, which we do adhere to as part of the Chariho Act. As long as you have those documents in place, then we proceed with our in-depth review. We usually take a couple weeks to review. It just depends on how many other applications we've received and how much personnel we have available to spread the wealth of these reviews. Once we've reviewed them, we reach out with a request for supplemental information. And supplemental information can be a variety of things. We could be requesting documentation that was maybe missed, or we can be requesting additional information if there's some aspect or scope that's unclear to us. Typically, we give the district between 2 to 3 weeks to turn around that additional information. Once you submit it back to us, we review that, and then we advance our recommendation to the council for approval. For a February 15th submission, that council meeting typically happens around mid-May, and that's when you would receive notification of approval from the council. Does anybody have any questions on this process?
When you say a council, in this case it would be school committee, is that correct?
Oh, when I say approval,
Right. That's right.
Oh, okay.
yeah, the
Okay.
Council of Elementary and Secondary Education,
Okay.
they approve
Okay.
all necessity of school construction
Okay.
applications.
Yeah, thank you.
What projects are you thinking of?
So, actually, Karen, the other chair, you want to do it or you want me to do it?
So right now, in the hopper, the thoughts are, we could go back to the 3 original new schools. The one, which was originally termed newer and fewer. And then renovations, which we've talked about, and that would be basically gutting the elementary schools. It's not as in other elementary schools where they're renovating the bigger spaces like the cafeteria, it would be renovating classrooms and bathrooms and hallways and from the side of that.
Okay. So you're still going between the 2 choices?
The 3 choices.
3 choices, okay. And then just remember, as part of this, you've done it before, you'll need, if you go for a bond, you need enabling legislation from the General Assembly, just build it into your timeline. And then would you do a vote during your annual budget meeting, or would you do a special election, or is it?
No, because we wouldn't have approval because it's in May. Our budget vote is in April, so we're looking for like November 2026.
I mean, you can vote before Ryan approves.
Right around the corner now.
The only reason I say it is because waiting costs money. So if
Yeah.
we're gonna wait till November, there's like, you could, I mean, you'll catch the general election, but you'd be sitting around for several months, but you might have millions of dollars in escrow, depending on the size of your project. So something to consider, that if you already have the mechanism in place for a vote in April, like if you were gonna do a special election and you have to spend $50,000 to prepare all the sites, that's one thing. If you already are paying and have the site set up, just something to consider. You don't need to wait for RIDE approval to vote. Many don't.
But we would need the General Assembly to approve the bond legislation.
Yeah, I'm saying like, it is like, others have done this where you figure out what your not to exceed number is, your project, you introduce it in January, and it'd be tight, but you could pull it off. Others have done it regularly. Just something to consider. Time is money. I mean, we can save it. I think everyone wins. The state wins and you guys will win, getting more bang for your buck, but I'm moving that along.
One of the issues is that our local budget is a local election and the bond is a state election. So last year, when we did it, we had to do the budget one month and the bond the next month, because they're different ballots, different rules.
Correct, they're different titles.
So you can't put it on the same ballot.
Yeah.
In those scenarios of keeping, like, I think you've done this before, is where if you have a stage 2 for February for a spring vote, you may also want to submit a stage 1. so that you're like.
We've had to do that, and
Yeah.
it does provide confusion.
So, it doesn't, but, I mean, it's been done here.
We have done it, yes.
You've done it, and you can always withdraw that if it's approved, but the benefit of that is if your first go is rejected, again, you save 6 months in the process and time is money, so there's a value to at least having that extra ball in the air, but you could keep applying it. Others have done it.
Gina, give a.
So I was gonna say, so based on the current timeline, SLAM was the selected architect. They'll present the options the school committee asked them to come back with for a presentation on the 16th. And then we're working on dates for community meetings at the schools to be able to do the same presentation, and then at their October meeting, they'll determine what the final plan is to work on with SLAM, to submit for the February 15th, and then for the bond and the second.
So is that different than when you went to the town councils? You're thinking instead of going to town council meetings, you want to have meetings at the schools?
So we did a lot, so yes, we did both. We did community meetings, we did the town council meetings was something, it's, for us, it's definitely was our courtesy, because we felt like it was important. It's just, it doesn't allow us the back and forth, because it's so formal. We're a piece of a larger agenda item. It didn't necessarily, wasn't necessarily fruitful, because a lot of our families want to ask questions, and it necessarily wasn't our meeting, it was a town meeting. So the school committee meeting and then the meetings at the school was what overall, I think, got us the most input. But we also talked about myself doing like, personal interviews, voiceover, similar to keep that. I'm on the radio now with WBLQ, so we're widening even our internship opportunities with the sort of marketing to make sure that we can sort of get, like at the senior centers, all of the other opportunities where are outside of just our realm of public. But we can present to the council. Once you all make a decision, then we would go. That's what we did last time.
Right.
But that's a me thing. Slim doesn't have to do that.
Okay, I see.
Mario. Did you go to the town council meeting?
He did. He joined every one.
That's what I thought.
We're on tour.
He has many fond memories.
That's right.
You don't want to come back?
He would be loved to come back.
I'm here today, aren't I?
Yes, and thank you for that. Any other questions or?
Yeah. It's not what I want, but I feel like some people in our community want to know what's the bare minimum we can do over the next 5 years that will be approved by RIDE.
I think part of it's what do you want to accomplish? So there's different strategies, but this is not a black and white answer. So there's some communities, and I'm also a member of Lincoln School Committee, who we have been picking projects to get kids to move into town. So we've done different strategies. We don't want to pay tuition. We don't want to do this. So many of our projects have been geared to get people to move into town or to not go to charter schools or to pick our programs. So we've invested in CTE. We're doing new gyms at all our schools. We've done STEM labs that open up in this month. That was what we wanted to do. There's a version of what used to be done in Lincoln. We just patch and you're good, but we chose a different strategy. So part of it is what is it you want to accomplish? Do you want to just do the status quo? If that's good enough, then we can answer one way. If you want something else, we would answer this another way. I mean, at a minimum, we would look at, I know one of your buildings in particular, I think Richmond's pushing 90, that we would advise that if you're going to invest in it, that you wouldn't necessarily issue a bond in Richmond, because if you issue bond payments and in 10 years or so, when it reaches 100, like some things happen, you want to move away from it and you close it, then our reimbursement stops. Like, there are different strategies. So part of it is understanding what you want to accomplish, and then there are sub-layers to this. We've had many discussions, even with Providence and others, buildings that you're not sure you're going to keep. You want to, are we going to improve health and safety? Of course. But part of it is, what is it, like, do you strive for more, do you need more? Get to in a second. But so, I'm not sure what the goal here is, but if you were going to go the investment route in those buildings and you're doing the bare minimum, you could do that, but I wouldn't bond for any of that, because the future of those buildings perhaps a little bit uncertain.
So when does it go from you want to know what we want to do versus you look at it and say, we demand you shut a building down?
I don't think we have, like, we don't shut buildings down, like.
Ever? You've never done that in
You
the state?
have, like, you have a school committee who has care and control of your buildings that you're supposed to, like, you are responsible to making sure that that doesn't happen. There are buildings that are in real rough shape. We have gone through and we'll say, this is per the General Assembly, the guide, like, if it's really bad, we would say, hey, let's stop chasing the good money after that, like that expression, why don't we pivot to something else? And many have done that recently. Or if it's a building that you need to have, or there's no debt capacity, or like there's all those scenarios, we'll make sure that at least the main priorities are met, but then we would have separate meetings on how you pay for that, because what we don't want is an expectation of getting, 61 to 65% reimbursement, and then the building, 5 years you change your mind, and then all of a sudden you're on the hook for all of it when you weren't counting on that. So we have a bunch of conversations, but we don't.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what you just said?
Right.
So
You're on the hook for,
yeah, so normally, right, the reason you come through a process is for money. Let's be honest here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. You don't want any state workers in the building. So I get how it works. But because this is the only type of public project where you get, let's say 66 might be your goal, your max of percent reimbursement. As long as you follow our process, you're entitled to that money. There are two ways to get reimbursement. One is on capital reserve funded projects. So if you have money in an account, and we can have meetings just on financing. If you do $1 million of a roof replacement or windows and you submit for reimbursement, within 1 year, we'll give you back your 66% and you're good to go. If you decide to close the building a year later, we've already paid you, you're good to go. With bond funding, the reimbursement isn't all up front, it's tied to all your annual payments. Many communities, depending on the size, if you're looking at something significant, you're probably going to push 25 to a 30-year repayment. That's what others are doing, just to keep the payments lower. But what that means is our aid is spread over 25 to 30 years. So if you are issuing a bond, and I'll use the Richmond one as an example, and you do the windows, and in 5 years, either enrollments continue to decline or something happens and you want to move on from the building, if you do so, then we, in year 6, we'll cut off our payments. And then from year 7 onwards, it becomes a Chariho responsibility. So rather than paying 34% of the project, you could be at risk of paying 100%. So that's why.
And 100% of the debt.
All of it, interest and principal. So that's why, be very mindful that if you make the choice to go renovation, especially with buildings that are close to 100, that you always find surprises as you go in there, that, think really hard about that one. And if you're going to keep it and this is going to go lower scale, I would look for alternate financing means instead of bonding. I wouldn't bond for small repairs. Not for that one. The others I don't know much about. I think they're in the 60s, which might be okay. But
They are, first, we did tour them today. They are very tight. Storage is an issue, space for itinerants is an issue, space for students is an issue, special education supports are an issue, or just housing them. They're very well maintained for the ages they are, but they are very.
Okay, so similar. So you may have seen in the news, Providence just closed Gilbert Stewart Middle School, which I think just turned 100. One of the reasons that they're moving away from that is going back to the vision. They want to do a pre-K, so they want to add different grade levels in dual language. These older buildings, I think, have 450 square foot classrooms. Like, you'll spend money chasing things and it'll never match what you want. So I would say start with what do you want to be in Chariho, and then you answer that first, and that would determine what buildings you need. If you're good where you are, I'm not here to tell you to spend money. Like, that's not what we're here for. But if you're looking to make change, or if maybe 2 out of the 3, like this is where you're hiring consultants to determine what the best plan is for you. But I would build for what you want, not for what you just had.
So Laurie, just to make sure, because I don't want it to be misunderstood that, so I think to Craig's on, just to add, when we talk about like state allocations, like state aid for our responsibility to that 3%, can you talk a little bit about that so the school committee and the members of this committee understand how that works?
Yep, so there's a requirement that went into effect 2018 that 3% of your operating budget you have to spend on maintaining your buildings annually. So again, one way to meet it is to do this larger scale bond and meet it, but you're gonna have to spend money regardless on these facilities. And this goes back to, some of them and this is where you lean on your consultants, have you reached the point on any of these where you get into that good money after that? If the answer is no, then you repair them. If the answer is yes, then you look at some other option. Again, that also, it goes back to making sure the answer to your question, what do you want Chariho to be? And if these can do that, then you go one way. If not, then you go the other.
And there's some of the confusion also, so the main campus has done very well with being able to pass bonds and to be able to maintain the campus beyond health and safety. At the elementary schools, and I had done a presentation for the committee back in May, I think it was May, well, of a year ago, we have not been able to pass any big construction for elementary schools to be able to do that. And since I've been here, and I'm going on year 6, we haven't been not successful of getting an elementary capital plan. Can you share with everyone here about when the new rules started around that 2018, 2019, about the 5-year capital improvement plan and the responsibility of the districts? Because typically, you don't do a stage 1 every year.
That's right. Yeah.
So I just want to like that's unheard of in most districts, but I want to make sure that the understanding of how much money we're investing in these stage 1 and stage 2 and not being decisive is also costing us dollars on our end.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. So the reason we have a 5-year process is because it costs several $100,000, in some communities it's in the millions to apply. Now again, those costs will be reimbursed assuming you get approved. But the thought process is if you have a 5-year plan, things don't become emergencies, so we stop this chasing fire mode. And then, the boiler's going, we should know that, right? The reason you hire someone is because you have a 5-year plan to know that the boiler has 3 years left on it, or understand that you're going to vacate the building and build another one, so you stop investing. So the idea is you come once every 5 years. Sometimes I get it, things change, and sometimes we have communities who go faster and want to do 2 plans at a time. You can. But because this is time consuming, the applications end up being like this large, you're paying, I think the last one's $400,000. There's a lot of money here that you would rather do once every 5 years. And it actually, maybe you do things and don't have to apply for 10 years. Like there's a way to do this more strategic. So that's the thought process behind it, so that we're not always chasing fires. Instead, we can be proactive and see things ahead of time and think a little bit differently with our products.
Out of curiosity, and you may not know the answer to this, do you know how many 90-year-old elementary school buildings there are still functioning in Rhode Island?
We can look. I know that the
Prudence Island.
I'm sorry?
Prudence Island.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's still operating, it's small,
but not as a public school. That might be a private thing. Portsmouth no longer uses that.
my understanding it was it still housed students.
Oh, maybe it might be a private thing, like. But,
Okay.
I think that of the ones I know, Providence they've been shedding theirs. They had at one point of their 40 buildings, 22 were built before World War II, and I want to say 14 were 100 years old, and they've gone through in the last few years. There's plans to get rid of all of them. I can't think of many 90-year-old. Pawtucket has been closing. They might have some old ones. I know they just closed Shea High School, which reached 100. Central Falls High School reached 100 and is closing. So
Tolman as well.
Tolman, yeah. So a lot of them.
They're going to combine them.
Yeah, at the new McCoy site. That'll be the largest school project in state history. Will be that one. So there aren't many is to answer. We have a list on the Jacobs website. It's a few years old, but you can actually sort by year built and see how many there are. I can't imagine that there's many 90-year-old ones.
Can I ask you a question? They were closed to renovate or closed, like, done with that building?
It's done.
Okay.
So in Providence in particular, land, a lot of it's contaminated, so they can only build on school sites in Providence. You might be more fortunate here that the land here, you have other options. So it makes it challenging in Providence to use school. You have to swing them out, wreck the building, and build exactly on site. Otherwise, it won't be approved by the Department of Environmental Management. The only one I can think of, so the Windmill Street School, that one they were able to renovate that one. That one had been shuttered for about 15 years, and they went through and they did an analysis that it was actually, this is one of those like the grandiose ones where the walls are like this thick, that it was cheaper to renovate than to tear down. They always do this exercise before they pick. In most cases, they end up tearing down because you end up chasing like things that you don't necessarily want to go towards. But they've been eliminating their stock of fuel bills.
Who's the they do? They do this evaluation?
Oh, the consultants that the district hires in the city of Providence.
So it's like, so SLAM.
Slam.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
And Colliers manages that work while SLAM is conducting all of the tests and getting us the demo,
And-
DM review of the sites, things like that.
That's correct.
And the reason why a lot of these communities did this with their facilities because they had motivation from the state with the 81% or higher reimbursement rates.
I'd say a good piece, that was the genesis of this, in addition to the last statewide assessment, which shined a light on things that weren't seen. With schools in particular, most taxpayers don't go in buildings, and kids don't vote. So it's very easy to not do anything for years, and that's how we ended up, these buildings don't.
Thanks for that analogy. That's a good one. I like
But
that.
these buildings don't get like that overnight. It's over.
Oh, no, you're
Yeah,
right.
It's over decades, so I think that the report in 2017 helped to highlight what was there, and then the incentives obviously got people to move forward. But now that it's out in the open, you can't you don't cover your eyes, and the building is better. So many communities now are forced to actually make these changes. And we've had, I think, since the report came out, I think we've had approvals, and I think it was like $5 billion through every community. So many have made it a real concerted effort to fix some of the things that have happened.
Karen, can I ask Mario, another confusion point becomes when the new law started with, and we got the Jacobs report, and now you have the Bureau Veritas
Yes.
coming up. Can you share the differences between those reports, what the purpose is, and then the purpose of the stage 2 and how they're different?
Sure. So our state report, which is a state requirement that was put into effect in 2016 for that one, is to look at a statewide, like a 10,000-foot view to see if there are issues that need action by the General Assembly. So we found there was over 3 billion needs back in 2017. That doesn't necessarily mean those are your solutions, but at least it shows, we highlight where the deficiencies are, the average ages. It's really just to update information that they didn't have to make decisions. That was used to create 2 statewide bonds and all these temporary incentives. We are required to do it again, which is ongoing now, but it's not intended to supplant necessarily your own consultant's work, right? You're hiring someone who's doing a much more detailed job. More importantly, they are being hired to produce solutions. We're just identifying need. They're coming through, hey, that boiler has 6 years left on it. That roof has this, these windows are failing. So we'll capture some of that. Where we are in the process now, and to use an analogy, it's like we're baking a cake. So we pick our vendor, which is we're going to go to Stop and Shop. We are going through now, grabbing all the ingredients. So we have the flour and the chocolate and this and that. And we're meeting with the district to make sure that we've captured the right amount of ingredients and which ingredients. That's where we have a meeting, I think, scheduled with Chariho. I think it's next week or this week with you guys. We do this with other districts. But so we meet with, we've sent out a preliminary, just some raw data. We want to make sure that some of the things that we've identified haven't been fixed already. So this is a lag between when they come and when you do work. Because we're focusing on 5-year need, we want to make sure that our vendor who said that window had 7 years left, that may not be correct. It actually may be 5, and it should show up on our list. So we're finalizing the ingredient list, which we'll do in the next few weeks. Once we are in a good place with that, then we go and make the batter, which is when you'll get a draft report. That report will be 40 pages per school, just like the one on our website, which will have pictures and all things that they found. We produce that for comments as well. Again, we have 300 of these, so we want to make sure that we're not missing anything. And then once we receive comments from districts, we make final changes, and the goal is by the end of the year, we would have a report, a statewide summary as well as the individual ones. We do allow, and again, I don't know if your timing aligns or not, but in the past, once our report is done, you can start to use that to help satisfy some of our requirements. We typically will allow that for smaller scale repairs and renovations. The idea is not to force you to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants if you're only going to do $1 million of work. So part of it is what you're going to be doing. But again, the intent of the state report is not to, you have your own process to go through. So once it's out, we'll see what kind of findings and trends we see, and then we'll go to the General Assembly to see if they want to take any action on whether they want to incentivize something or not. But that's the main purpose of it, is to give them information to determine policy changes or policy issues.
So as of right, what you're implying is, as of right now, the state does not have any finalized report on any facilities for Chariho?
Oh, no, yeah, we're.
Okay.
Close.
Yeah, not even close. We're probably months away from that.
Thank you very much.
And just to restate,
Yes.
what you mentioned about, the reports, when you said the 5 years, so would you say that a district that has several stage 1 and stage 2 has a robust amount of information and data to be able to plan, and now doing another stage 2 of the same campus? Because I think there was a belief that for some reason, the Jacobs report was a how to fix your buildings, and that's what so I think if you could help them just understand that really what, in it maybe just a kid-friendly way, the purpose of reports versus the purpose of what we have to do every 5 years.
Yeah, and you've paid a lot of vendors, I mean, I would hope that you have ample information on your buildings, because they are only doing the 6 buildings here, they're not doing 306 throughout the state with a variety of teams. So I would say that the state one, again, is a high-level item that's looking to identify trends, identify needs. Again, we have allowed for small-scale projects, like Situate, for example, who comes in for like $2 million every 5 years, they don't do anything. We let them use that because, again, there's no need to spend millions of dollars applying if you're only doing low-scale items. You should have that's what you should task your vendor to do, is to actually give you that information. If you don't trust the information from your vendor, then get another vendor. But I would rely on whoever you hire to give you a better sense of the condition of your buildings in the state, when our purpose is really for like high-level deficiency finding and for policy setting. Like, that's the purpose of ours. You can use it when it's ready, but again, it's like on a different timeline. It's not intended to say, if it's not here, you can't do it, or this is the solution. Like, that's not the
Like,
intent.
so it's not intended to say, well, this was in there, they're saying, this is in the next 5 years, here's some of the things you should be thinking about prioritizing. Is that a fair
Yeah, and I
statement?
think, and again, I like how it's 5-year need, though you should be thinking longer term than 5 years.
Correct. That's
You likely will
why I have him.
you will have needs that go past that.
And that report does not have educational enhancements in it, it is just physical therapy.
Thank you.
No, that's good. So it's a 5-year look, even though it's done every 10 years?
Every
It's
5.
every 5,
It's every
every 5, it keeps coming. It takes like years to do it, so we actually started this.
That's right, all right, that's where I'm
Yeah,
confused.
we started the RFP in November of '22.
With renovations.
Yeah.
And we're renovating one of our elementary schools, and we get into it, and at that point, they realize it's not sound. Foundation, whatever, they say, this is not worth proceeding forwards with.
I'll give you an example, so
So-
at Charlestown,
But that should be like, I would.
That should be done by
You
someone.
should you should do that now. You should never get to that point. In this hypothetical, if you signed a contract for, there's other layers here, because if you sign a contract for renovations, then you're gonna cancel someone's contract. You'll probably get sued by the contractor, but if they find that it's not sound to renovate and you have to do it, whatever piece of money you've committed, like if you abandon the project, we're not gonna reimburse you on. This is where I would use other money.
But what if we find like contaminants and things that are stopping us from proceeding with the project?
So this, part of the stage 2, your vendor is supposed to do
Slam is
environmental
supposed to do all
studies.
that.
Yeah. So make sure, this is where you wanna make sure that you're paying them, like, this is where that money goes into effect, that, you pay a good amount of money up front. You wanna make sure that all these questions have been answered, so that surprises can be found before you issue a bond and get approval, not after the fact. The good news is I can't think of an example where that's occurred just because of our process, where people are spending 300-400, Kingstown spent $1.5 million, others spend quite a bit, but you're making sure that all these tests, they do test sites and they check the materials to make sure that doesn't happen. Because there are other implications. If you spend all this money to get there and then you abandon, again, you're spending another year. Like, again, time is money here, that do the work and the due diligence ahead of time.
Thank you.
Regarding the Veritas report as it comes about, is it also safe to say that this report does not encompass every piece of the building that, right, that would need to be replaced or
Well,
possibly be deficient?
so that's a great question, and that's one of the reasons why we are meeting with you guys
Yep.
this next week, because we want to make sure that we've gotten some feedback that scopes of work might be missing,
Okay.
or are too vague to really understand what part of the building they apply to.
Right.
And so we want to go through
Yeah.
that with you and with Bureau Veritas so that we can help them to be more specific.
Get that back for us, for our district. You know, it's just,
Where's your want?
what, $5 billion? And we're reimbursing all the other districts in Rhode Island that our state tax dollars are
Yep.
going to build their new schools.
We had our chance.
And this is why you have legislators who decide that. It's not like a right. We would advocate for all bonuses. We actually did extend them. A lot of people
Yeah.
around those didn't go through, but that's a general assembly decision, whether they would grant it or not.
Do you think it could be part of the, I know you're not a bond legislator or a bond council, but could that be part of our bond that?
Anything is possible if you can get it through. That's the reality.
You do still have the energy efficiency bonus, which only applies to new construction. So that would be something that if you met the thresholds for that.
That's what, 4%, right?
It's 4%, that would be,
So that gets us to 65.
but again, only new construction, it does not apply to renovations.
Right.
So basically, we also could get 4% for renovating as a regional district, so it's basically would be one or the other of those 4%.
So you're capped by that one permanent bonus.
Yeah.
Or there's also school safety and security, so you can pick one, depending on what you do. 65, it seems like a reasonable
Yeah.
number for planning purposes.
Our focus at the elementary level has been the safety and security because we don't have it approved. Can you explain that? So people get confused because we're spending money on capital,
Yeah.
okay, because we have to ask for the $500,000 in emergency spending for safety because we don't have an approved capital plan. Can you explain that process?
Yes. So because our stage 1 and stage 2 process can take 1 to 2 years depending on a variety of reasons. If things come up that can't wait, so your piece of your roof starts leaking, there is an emergency process up to $500,000 that we have that Chariho has used a couple times where you can come in for this and you can go, that still gets your 60% reimbursement. But like if we see that, years ago, we would see some who would just, every July, they would just ask, they didn't want to apply. And so that's not allowed. But again, you're in the process of doing this. Hopefully you will have a 5-year plan, whatever it may be for your elementary schools. And then those days of emergency approvals and the lack of, that's out of the way. Hopefully this is the future here for Chariho.
Good.
I do, I know you can't answer this, but,
We love those questions.
you know, Rhode Island has a huge housing crisis right now. And, do you see, is it possible that, you know, they start shifting money away from building and improving schools and into housing? And, you know, I don't know if our 61% will be guaranteed 5, 6, or 7 years. I understand when we lock in at our 61%, we have it for the life of the payback. But 5 or 7 years from now, regional school districts may not get 61%.
Yes, I mean, who knows the future? I know that Housing Aid, which is a program for reimbursement, has been around since the 1960s. The state has made every payment on that. Perhaps what you're describing is if they did a moratorium in the future, where they said, which we had one in 2011, 2015, where they said no new projects, and then you're just sitting around paying for things on your own. Could that happen? Who knows? I mean, the reality is, right, you have labor and all these who would be against it. It's not popular to cut off school construction. There's a lot of money for housing that's not moving on its own anyways, that do they need to find more money? I don't know. So I can't answer that, but we have heard zero on a potential moratorium.
In a renovation direction. Would that impact the reimbursement? Especially given the age of the buildings?
We would probably want to see what the vendor comes up with. So I mean, there is an example of the Narducci Learning Center, which used to be known as the Windmill School in Providence, built in I think the 1920s, where they spent a lot of money, but they were able to renovate it. And they checked off every box that every issue would be done, so that when they invested in this, that building is going to be there for another 50 plus years. So we probably would want to ask some of these questions. And again, if the renovations that in this hypothetical are like minor, would ask, don't bond for that, find another way to pay for it in case you change your mind.
Right.
But if they're larger scale, we want to make sure that they're more comprehensive so that you're not, because we've also seen this at Mount Pleasant and Providence, another building's 100 years old, they spent $9 million a few years ago doing the sign slabs, and then water came in from the building envelope and essentially ruined what they spent. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen
Right.
here in any of your buildings.
Right.
I think this question has been asked, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Is there such a thing as a too big of an elementary school? Like Ride won't approve it because there's too many kids. I think Johnston just opened.
Yeah, it's next September.
September. So if we went with the newer and fewer concept of one elementary school,
We haven't come across a situation where there's been a building that's too big in order to be educationally sound.